This is another podcast from Alpha Business Media. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on, well, quite an extraordinary journey. We're heading up, literally and metaphorically, to the peaks of digital infrastructure. We're talking clouds over the Himalayas, specifically exploring the really fascinating, kind of complex world of data centers and cloud tech in Nepal. It's a country whose identity is so wrapped up in those incredible mountains, and now it seems to be standing at a digital dawn. It faces unique geographical barriers, absolutely, but it also has some genuinely surprising natural advantages. So our mission today, let's unpack Nepal's digital future. We'll look at its current infrastructure, the big challenges it faces, and then we'll uncover this remarkable green card advantage that could, well, fundamentally reshape its destiny. Okay, let's begin.
It is a compelling paradox, isn't it? I mean, for decades, Nepal being landlocked between India and China, that was mostly seen as a constraint, geographically. But in the digital age, that whole perspective is being rethought completely. The focus shifts, you see, from physical trade routes to how data flows. Frictionless. So our goal for you listening, whether you're, say, a business leader looking at new markets or an investor scouting opportunities, maybe an IT pro just curious about global infra, is to give you a really comprehensive assessment. We want you to walk away with a clear sense of Nepal's potential, maybe as a regional digital hub, or even, like you said, a green data fortress.
That's a powerful image. Okay, so to kick us off, let's look at the plan. The strategy. Nepal's digital ambitions, they're formalized in this national roadmap called the Digital Nepal Framework, DNF. Now, DNF 1.0, back in October 2019, on paper, incredibly ambitious. We're talking 80 initiatives, 8 sectors, digital foundations, agriculture, health, education, even thinking about the internet as essential, pushing for 5G leadership. But you know how it goes with grand plans?
Yeah.
How did that ambition fare against, well, reality?
That's the key question, right? And what's fascinating here is how DNF 1.0, despite those noble goals, really ran into some significant systemic problems, practical problems. We're talking things like not enough coordination between government departments, a clear lack of consistent funding, a shortage of people with the right skills, and even basic stuff like data incompatibility between different government systems. These weren't small issues. They were fundamental roadblocks that stopped the framework really taking off.
Okay, so given those systemic problems, how did Nepal pivot? How did they learn from that for DNF 2.0, the one presented in 2025?
Yeah.
What's really different this time?
It feels like a real maturation, honestly. This isn't just a minor tweak. DNF 2.0 is a profound shift away from that huge list of 80 initiatives. Instead, it's focusing on building the foundations, the enablers. They've boiled it down to this acronym, FAST. So, future-ready digital foundations, access to digital services, skills in digital literacy, and transformation of the digital autonomy. Moving from just listing wishes to a practical plan for building what's needed that shows real maturity in their strategic thinking, I think. For businesses, this is important. It signals serious intent, but also, look, improvements will be gradual. They're strengthening the foundations first. It's more stable long-term.
That does sound much more pragmatic. And a central piece, a physical cornerstone of this state digital setup is the Government Integrated Data Center, the GIDC. It's run by the National Information Technology Center, NITC, and is meant to be the single, secure digital heart for all government agencies. Centralize resources, cut costs, ensure stable e-services. It's hosting key eGov apps now from Kathmandu.
But given Nepal's geography, that seismic risk, how does the GIDC handle that huge threat? And that's where you see some really crucial forward-looking planning. Nepal, unfortunately, sits in one of the world's most active seismic zones. It's just a fact. So recognizing this, the government, actually with help from Korea, set up a disaster recovery center down in Hitota. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this decision really shows a deep grasp of risk management. You just can't put all your critical government data eggs in one basket, especially not in an earthquake zone. That geographic redundancy, having that backup site far away, it's absolutely vital, essential for keeping government services running, keeping data safe if disaster strikes. It's just non-negotiable for resilience.
Okay, so we have the strategy, these key foundational pieces like the GIDC and the DR site. But now let's bridge that to, well, the current reality on the ground. Internet connectivity in Nepal.
Yeah.
It throws up this really striking paradox. Penetration rates, they soared from maybe 61, 63% in 2017-18. Put it to an absolutely astonishing 144.56% by April 2024. That sounds like a revolution. What's really behind numbers like that? Is it genuine success or is there a catch?
That's a great question, and yes, there's definitely a catch, that incredibly high number. It's mostly because users often have multiple SIM cards, right? Each with internet access. Mobile broadband is king. Over 96% of subscribers use it, but But these numbers mask a pretty harsh truth for businesses. Over 30% of firms in Nepal, they suffer frequent internet outages. Average downtime is like 3.5 hours. That eats up about 2.1% of their annual sales.
Wow, that's a significant hit to the bottom line. And the core reason for this unreliable connection.
Precisely. Being landlocked, Nepal relies completely on India and China for its international internet traffic. That automatically makes data transit more expensive. Plus, it's subject to various taxes, currency fluctuations, you name it. And there's this big usage gap. Just because access is formally available doesn't mean it's effective or sustainable, because the quality just isn't always there. So yeah, many people might have access, but getting truly reliable, high-quality connectivity, still a major hurdle for many.
Okay, that connectivity landscape with all its paradoxes must directly shape the local data center market then. Despite the challenges, Nepal does have its own developing ecosystem. Who are the main local players, the local champions in this space, and how do they try to stand out?
Right, on the local front, you've got players like DataHub. They position themselves as provider neutral. They've got ISO 27001 certification. They offer the whole range. Colocation, public and private clouds, they call theirs Yeti Cloud data replication, backup as a service. And their key selling points for local businesses are pretty strong. 24/7 local support. And importantly, you can pay in Nepalese rupees. That avoids all the currency risk. They've also thought about Resilience primary site in Kathmandu, DR site in Butwal. Smart. Then you have Cloud Himalaya. They make a big claim, being the only Tier 4 certified data center in Nepal. That implies, 99.999 by 5% availability, complete fault tolerance, also ISO certified. And beyond them, there's this growing group of smaller hosting providers, Babal Host, Gurkha Host, others. It shows the local market is definitely developing, getting competitive.
So a vibrant local scene, definitely. What about the global giants? AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Do they have actual physical data centers in Nepal? And how are Nepali businesses using their services?
No, you won't find their physical centers in Nepal itself. Not yet, anyway. But their services, widely used, often through local partners, like Cloudlaya helps access GCP. Typically, these global clouds get used for tasks that aren't super sensitive to latency, but where you need that massive scale or those advanced tools. Think big data analytics, machine learning, AI development, stuff like that. Actually, a really powerful example was after the 2015 earthquake. Global cloud resources were apparently used quite effectively in coordinating rescue efforts, shows their power for huge distributed tasks.
Okay, so let's put this all together, this unique digital landscape. High penetration, maybe, but low reliability, plus significant latency to those global cloud hubs. You said 60, 100 milliseconds, sometimes more, just to get to Singapore or Mumbai. How should a Nepali business, especially maybe a smaller one, an SME, how should they even start thinking about digital transformation without getting completely bogged down by all this complexity?
Well, it really means a hybrid cloud strategy isn't just, a good idea. It becomes a strategic imperative, almost a necessity. The logic is pretty straightforward. For your critical stuff, your customer-facing apps, databases needing super low latency, maybe things covered by data sovereignty laws, local providers are the clear choice. But at the same time, businesses absolutely need access to those powerful, scalable tools for analytics, ML, AI things only the global giants really offer at scale. So if you quickly compare them side by side, local providers keep your data in Nepal, latency is low, maybe under 10 meters. You pay an NPR, get local support. Global providers, data's outside Nepal, latency is higher, 60, 100 meters plus. Payments in USD, support's different. But scalability and those advanced services, that's where the global clouds just blow local options away, virtually unlimited. So yeah, hybrid architecture seems the most rational path. Core business, local, heavy-duty, non-latency critical stuff, global. It's about balancing needs.
That makes a lot of sense. Balancing immediate needs with those global capabilities. But okay, even with this strategic vision, even with a growing local market, the path to the cloud for Nepali businesses, it's still full of significant roadblocks, isn't it? These seem like really systemic challenges, infrastructure, economic, regulatory. What are the biggest physical hurdles they're up against?
Well, yeah, the basics, communications and electricity. They jump right out. The low quality and high cost of internet access, still a major barrier, especially for SMEs, and power. Despite Nepal's huge hydro potential, which we'll get to the existing grid, it desperately needs upgrades to give stable, uninterrupted power. That's absolutely critical for data centers, non-negotiable. But maybe the most serious, the most pervasive challenge, it's the seismic risk. That's just huge.
Yeah.
Nepal is in one of the most seismically active zones globally, the 2015 earthquake. It's a constant, stark reminder. Most buildings there aren't built to modern seismic standards. So for critical infrastructure like a data center, you need colossal investment in resistant design and construction that massively increases capital costs, operational risks, hangs over everything.
Right. And beyond those physical constraints, what about the economic side and the human resource challenges? What's holding back cloud adoption there?
Financially, yeah, for a lot of Nepali SMEs, moving to the cloud, it's just unaffordable right now.
Yeah.
Budgets are tight, interest rates on loans can be high, it makes big IT investments tough. And then there's this acute talent shortage. And the digital literacy gap, this is really critical. Only a tiny fraction of people, like 0.16%, have ICT education. Just 2% in STEM fields overall. And what's really mind-blowing is that something like 91% of adults apparently can't perform even basic digital tasks. That skills gap, it fundamentally stops companies from using cloud tech effectively, even if they could afford it. Plus, frankly, a lot of SME owners just aren't fully aware of the benefits cloud can bring, so there's hesitation.
And finally, you've got the regulatory and security hurdles, too. Businesses worry about leaks, privacy breaches, data integrity in those shared cloud environments.
Exactly. And while Nepal does have laws like the Data Act 2022 and rules for some industries to keep customer data local, the overall regulatory picture is often seen as, well, unclear, murky. That legal uncertainty makes companies nervous, especially foreign companies considering investment. They pause.
It sounds like all these problems are tangled together, aren't they? They seem to form this kind of vicious circle. Unreliable infrastructure discourages investment that limits good IT jobs. So maybe 7,000 or 500 IT grads leave the country or freelance for foreign firms each year, which makes the talent shortage even worse.
Right.
Which then stops companies implementing the tech that could help them grow. It's tough. So how do we break that cycle?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And interestingly, it leads us right to Nepal's unique opportunities, a potential way to turn these very constraints into, well, a strategic advantage.
Exactly. Because amidst all these really serious challenges, Nepal holds a unique card, a trump card maybe, one that could not just offset the weaknesses, but actually redefine its place in the global digital economy. And that is its vast reserves of clean, renewable, and potentially very cheap energy. What really stands out here is just the sheer scale of Nepal's hydropower potential.
This truly is Nepal's undisputed ace in the hole. I mean, the country's economically viable hydropower potential, estimated over 42,000 megawatts, that's a virtually inexhaustible source of 100% renewable energy. And you look at the global picture, energy use by data centers, by AI systems, it's growing exponentially. Insatiable demand from AI and ML. Suddenly, Nepal's surplus clean energy, that becomes incredibly valuable, a huge asset. This resource lets Nepal position itself as like an ideal spot for sustainable green data centers, sometimes called cold data centers, for the global tech giants, the ones committed to net zero carbon goals. This isn't just nice to have, it's a powerful reason to choose Nepal, way beyond just buying offsets. And you're already seeing local providers start to advertise things like solar-powered server rooms or green hosting. They know it's a selling point.
And it's not just about being green, right? It's about hard economics, too. Combining that abundant hydro with natural cooling because of the high altitudes that can seriously slash the operating costs for data centers. Cooling is one of the biggest expenses. If you can cut that by 40% or more, that's a massive economic incentive. Plus, maybe Nepal's location between India and China. Instead of a constraint, maybe it becomes an opportunity to be a neutral, trusted data hub for that whole South Asian market.
Yep.
I mean, that's 2.8 billion people.
Precisely. And look, despite the talent shortage we talked about, Nepal does have a growing IT services export sector worth over $500 million US. It's driven by lower labor costs, a young entrepreneurial population. That existing base, that human capital, it can definitely support a future data center ecosystem. It's a foundation to build on. You can even look next door at Bhutan. They're actively chasing data center and AI investment, betting big on their green energy. Projects like their Jelapha Mindfulness City, developed with international partners, that shows a kind of working model Nepal could potentially adapt, maybe even improve upon.
So this really presents Nepal with a huge strategic choice, doesn't it? Option A. Keep doing the traditional thing, just export surplus electricity, raw material, low value add, volatile prices. Or option B, pivot. The provocative question is, which path will Nepal actually choose?
And this raises an important question. Okay, if they choose the second path, how can Nepal really seize this opportunity? That second path, the more promising one, is about building modern green data centers inside Nepal, using its own hydropower to power the servers right there. Then, the product they export. It isn't just raw megawatts anymore. It becomes high-tech, high-margin services, computing power, data storage, or even that intense processing needed to train complex AI models. That's where the value is. This path lets Nepal climb way up the economic value chain. It creates high-skilled jobs at home, it helps develop its own tech ecosystem, and ultimately, it lets Nepal carve out a really unique, sustainable niche in the global digital economy. It's about exporting innovation, powered by green energy, not just the energy itself.
That is a powerful vision. But okay, to actually get there, to reach those digital heights, it's going to need coordinated action from everyone. Businesses, IT providers, the state. So for businesses, especially those SMEs, what's the immediate practical advice? What should they be doing right now?
Yeah, the message needs to be pretty clear. Adopt that hybrid cloud strategy we talked about. It just makes sense. Use local providers for your latency-sensitive stuff, your sovereign data needs. Use the global clouds for scalable workloads, non-critical stuff, advanced analytics, balance costs, performance, compliance, and crucially, invest in your people. Partner with universities' training centers. Upskill your existing staff. Focus on practical, hands-on certifications. AWS, GCP, cybersecurity is huge. And look, you don't have to boil the ocean. Start small. Use pay-as-you-go models. Digitize processes bit by bit. Avoid that huge upfront capital cost if you can.
Makes sense. And for the local IT providers, the data center companies themselves, what's their imperative? How do they really cash in on this green advantage?
Oh, they have to shout it from the rooftops. Aggressively promote that green angle. 100% green, powered by Himalayan hydropower. That's not just a local selling point, that's a world-class USP. It clicks with global sustainability drives. And look, don't try to beat AWS at their own game across the board. Specialize, collaborate, focus on niches where they can win. Ultra-low latency, maybe robust disaster recovery, secure private clouds for regulated sectors like finance or health, become official partners with the global clouds. Help local businesses build and manage those hybrid solutions. That's a key role. And finally, prove reliability. Invest in that seismic resistance. Get certified. You have to do this operating in Nepal and then promote it actively. Build that trust. Local clients, international clients, they need that assurance.
Okay, and lastly, the government and the regulators. Their role is obviously critical in enabling all this.
Yeah.
What are the absolute must-do actions for them?
Right. They need to really get behind public-private partnerships or PPPs. Actively promote them for building critical infrastructure, think national fiber backbones, maybe even anchor data centers.
Yeah.
And make the process clear, transparent, fast for investors, cut the red tape. Then they need to invest strategically in that middle mile connectivity, those high-capacity fiber links between cities and regions. That's often a market failure where public funds can make a huge difference, lowering internet costs for everyone down the line. Balancing regulation and innovation is also key. They need to clarify those data sovereignty laws, like the Data Act 2022. Make them practical. Protect privacy, sure, but don't stifle the digital economy. Maybe even consider things like digital free zones or regulatory sandboxes specifically to attract foreign data center investment. Try things out. And critically, launch major national digital literacy programs. Tackle that skill shortage head on. Integrate digital skills into school curriculums, yes, but also mass reskilling for the public. These aren't just abstract policies. These are crucial steps that could fundamentally impact your future access to digital services and opportunities right there in Nepal.
So if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, Nepal faces a steep climb, no doubt about it, to reach its digital future. The challenge is infrastructure, human resources, regulation. They're very real. They need systemic solutions. But the path up that mountain, it's undeniably lit up by this incredibly bright light of opportunity, that vast potential of green hydropower.
It truly is. Nepal really is at a crossroads, a strategic choice. Keep exporting raw power, or start exporting high-tech digital services made with that power.
The second path, yeah, it's harder, more complex. But the payoff, incomparably greater economic benefits, high-quality jobs, a sustainable competitive edge for decades. Those clouds over the Himalayas, they're not just a metaphor for altitude anymore, are they? For Nepal, they represent this tangible economic frontier, a whole new layer of value waiting to be created. By tackling the challenges head-on and by boldly leveraging that unique green advantage, the country really could turn its geography from a constraint into its greatest digital asset and take its rightful place in the global data economy. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What could other nations, maybe those with their own unique natural resources, achieve if they similarly rethought their traditional exports and embraced this digital frontier? Thank you for diving deep with us today.